Today I'm going to be talking about the 3 healer builds that I am quite excited for in 10.0.7. I'm going to go over specifically what changes I think are very impactful in 10.0.7 for healers, and I also wanted to go over why I think they're going to be impactful, which means I'm going to be pulling out somewhat of a meme quantitative tool, kind of like my meme tier list with the horse drawing from back in beta for people who have been watching my videos for a while. I'm going to be talking about the Nokhud Offensive dungeon. In my opinion, Nokhud Offensive, it didn't start out as a well-balanced dungeon, but I think now, specifically for healers, I think Nokhud Offensive is one of those dungeons that highlights, or you could say separates, the well-designed healers from the less well-designed healers. And by that I mean the Nokhud Offensive kind of has a little bit of everything. It has some debuff healing, some random spot healing. It has moments of high tank healing necessity, of high group healing, stacked healing, spread healing, burst healing. It has good opportunities to make use of a lot of different utility. On some bosses, being able to deal damage as a healer is very important. On other bosses, being able to just do maximum throughput is very important. I think Nokhud Offensive covers all the bases from a healing perspective. If you play a healer that excels in Nokhud Offensive, it is a good healer, because if it excels in Nokhud Offensive, it probably excels everywhere. To put this another way, Nokhud Offensive does a good job of highlighting some weaknesses that healers have. And I'm going to go into the specifics of why that is, because it's a good way for me to give context as to why I think certain changes coming in 10.0.7 are a big deal. The dungeon is effectively broken down into 3 sections of trash with 4 bosses. The first section of trash, all of the centaurs located around Granith, the first boss, is a somewhat chaotic healing profile. You have people in the group that take random damage. You have people in the group that get debuffs that need priority healing. The tank can very often get slapped around, especially on fortified weeks, so the tank needs a little bit of babysitting. And ideally, you want to be able to do all of that while contributing some damage, if possible, and bringing some utility. For the first packs in particular, roots are good utility, so are stuns, and so are, the myriad kind of stops. Blinds, knocks, disorients, whatever. This first section of trash, I think, it can highlight healers that have weaknesses with mana, and that is because a lot of groups are quite accustomed to very quickly going from pack to pack, especially with some of the higher health mobs in this first area around Granith that aren't particularly dangerous. A lot of the times, once the priority mobs are dead, tanks or groups will pull the remaining mobs into the second or the next pack and keep chaining that whole section back to back. So if you're playing a healer that has some mana concerns, that isn't particularly efficient with mana, healing those sections without having to tell your group to stop so that you can drink can be an issue. So mana longevity is important here. So is the ability to kind of do multiple things at once. Like I said, you need to be able to do, or the spec you play needs to be able to do some tank healing as well as some spot healing, which sometimes kind of morphs into some AoE healing, while also being able to use your utility, move out of the ground AoEs and things like that. So again, if you're playing a healer that maybe doesn't do a very good job of doing multiple kind of things simultaneously or quickly, you could struggle on Granith, that trash. Healing specs that also are quite rooted in place can also see some issues here. Like I said, there's a few ground debuffs, along with the trash around Tira and Maruk, a lot of things to avoid that can be quite disruptive if you're playing a healer that relies on a lot of hard casted or long cast time heals. The first boss itself is almost it's a break. Considering that the opening trash and then the second set of trash groups generally go to around Tempest are really quite punishing and challenging for a lot of groups and healers, Granith serves as almost like a respite between those 2 sections of the dungeon. But Granith is the boss that, depending on how you want to look at it, it either rewards healers that can do damage, or it highlights the healers that really don't contribute much damage. Because Granith, the boss fight, really doesn't have much going on. There is effectively one large AoE group-wide damaging event every however many seconds, with nothing going on between it. The boss doesn't do very much tank damage, and the healers have plenty of time to top the groups up between those AoE damaging events going out, which means most of the time your job as a healer on the first boss is to just contribute damage, just to kill the boss as quickly as possible. And that might also mean that you're going around to do the cannon, the catapults, siege ballistas, whatever they're called. And after Granite is dead, you're going to head off to the trash surrounding Tempest. All of this trash around Tempest is similarly difficult to the trash surrounding Granite. All of the trash in this dungeon is actually mechanics heavy. This is somewhat similar as well. You're going to be healing up quite a lot of tank damage, quite a lot of random bolt damage and chain lightning damage, and just random spot healing. Bringing a lot of stops helps for this trash as well. AoE blind, stuns, knocks, knock-ups, things like that. So healers like priests can sometimes struggle with this trash if your group is lacking a little bit in those kind of the AoE stops. The Thunder Lizard pack in particular is going to destroy tanks. So if you're going to excel in Nokhud offensive, the healer you're playing needs to be able to do significant healing into single targets, tank healing. The Raging Tempest boss itself is one of those environments where everyone is dying. So once every minute, the boss is going to cast Lightning Storm and just do huge amount of AoE damage to the whole group. I know that this got nerfed just a couple of days ago, but the mechanic itself is always dangerous. It's a damage pattern that just kills the entire group unless you're playing a healer that can do some serious burst healing on the whole group. Generally, that group is also going to be quite spread out, and mobility can become somewhat of an issue on this boss as well. Having to soak the orbs in well-coordinated groups, especially on comms, where you can call that you're getting a certain amount of orbs, or you can tell people not to soak a certain section, mobility is less of an issue. But particularly in pug groups where a lot of people just like to run around and grab all of the orbs they can near themselves, playing a healer that is lacking mobility is highlighted here. The difference between collecting orbs on a monk or a druid and on a priest is stark. The trash surrounding Tira and Maruk is broadly similar to the rest. You want some utility, you want some stops, you want to be able to do some pretty significant tank healing. Damage reductions are also very, very good here. I believe it's the warriors in all of these mound packs that apply Mortal Strike debuffs to the tank. These were nerfed, but this has historically been one of those sets of trash that has highlighted the weakness of shamans in particular, not really having any button that they can use to help tanks survive some of those quite difficult pulls. Especially when a Mortal Strike debuff goes out, that means your ability to just bomb huge amounts of healing into the tank is limited. The bosses themselves are a bit of a mixed bag. There's quite a lot of random damage going out with the shoots. There's also a huge amount of burst AoE group damage going out with the arrow, and there can be quite a lot of movement required. Again, this is one of those boss fights where it can be difficult if you're playing a healer that lacks mobility, especially if that's also a healer that lacks in one of the other ways. If it doesn't have particularly good spot healing or group-wide burst healing, those weaknesses can be quite obvious on that boss. Most groups are going to get all of their count in those 3 broad sections of trash and then head straight to the last boss and kill Balakar Khan without pulling anything else around him. This is, again, an entirely different sort of boss fight to heal. Balakar Khan is going to require decent defensives, decent mobility, decent tank healing, decent group AoE burst healing, and then also the ability to press some serious cooldowns to get your group through the add phase where they all channel the AoE damage. So with that very long-winded explanation of many of the mechanics in the dungeon, the point I'm trying to make here is that Nokhud Offensive challenges healers in every way possible. It tests healers' ability to heal all different types of damage patterns, as well as their defensives and their mobility and their external cooldowns and their utility, interrupts, AoE stops, all of it. Burst healing, sustained healing, the type of healing you're just panicking and trying to do or get as much healing as you can into a very small window because the whole group is dying. But then there's also a boss where there isn't really much to heal and it rewards the healers that do reasonable damage. The reason why I am excited about 3 builds, I would say in particular, coming in or getting significant buffs in 10.0.7 is because I feel like when I take those healers into Nokhud Offensive, they are lacking significantly in one way or another. And I think the changes coming in 10.0.7 shore up some of those weaknesses. And I think that has analogs for the rest of the game. I think, as an example, playing a Fistweaver through all of Nokhud Offensive feels fantastic until you get to the final, let's say, 3 bosses, specifically Tempest. And that is because, at least at the moment, Mistweavers or Fistweavers don't have very powerful buttons or good mechanics to heal the whole group because it's dying all at once. If you're playing a Fistweaver, you can punch and kick your way through all of the first trash and the spec feels great. You contribute good damage on the first boss. You have plenty of time to heal people up after the Granith Roars go out or the AoE damage goes out. You have plenty of mobility to get to all the siege ballistas. You have plenty of stops and good throughput through just fistweaving on the trash. And then you do basically the same thing all throughout the trash before Tempest. Fistweaving feels great, and then you get to the Tempest boss. It casts Lightning Storm, and you have no buttons to press that heal the whole group other than maybe standing still and spamming Vivify, or pressing Shiji and then trying to basically spot heal one person with each cast through a group-wide AoE damaging ability. And then the same kind of thing happens when you get to the next boss, Tira and Maruk. There are quite a few times in that boss where you just can't be in melee range, or the bosses run away from you right when you need to heal. So again, it can highlight some of the issues that some specs have. So the specific specs or builds that I am excited to play in 10.0.7 are a Mistweaver build, a Holy Priest build, and a Resto Shaman build. Now, I'm not saying that any other build than the builds I'm talking about are going to be viable or not viable. I'm not even going to claim that the builds I'm going to go over here are going to be the best builds for those specs. These are just builds that I find fun and am interested in playing, that I think will be fun to play. The first is a kind of hybrid of a Fistweaver with some added tools in their kit. It is effectively the normal generic Fistweaver build that a lot of people are used to, all the way up until the last section, where I won't be taking Awakened Feline and will be taking all the Shaylin's gift nodes. Now, what I like about this is I'm hoping that a build like this gets all of the benefits of a normal or traditional Fistweaving build. Your 1-minute crane, your ancient teachings, your enveloping breath healing, your big cooldown healing based around crane, and your excellent fistweaving healing when you can cleave mobs on packs with ancient concordance and feline stomp. But on top of that, I am excited to get Shaylin's gift that heals 5 targets with a 1.5 second cast time and gains a cloud every 4 seconds. I am hoping that Shaylin's gift in particular is one of those abilities that's going to help Fistweavers in the department that I think they are struggling with the most, and that is group-wide burst AoE healing. In that Nokhud Offensive, going into Tempest, into the Lightning Storm, and being able to press a button that's going to do something like 5,500% spell power healing in the middle of the storm, top up the whole group, no RNG with which targets get Shaylin's gift, just a safe and powerful and completely expected outcome when you press the button. You can go into something like the Tempest Storm every minute with 10 stacks of Shaylin's gift, and you can effectively top your entire team, guaranteed. I think that is going to be, first of all, fun to do, but second of all, I think it's going to shore up a huge weakness of Mistweaver, and that is that when I go into something like a Tempest Storm, I don't have to press Vivify 7 times and spend 30% of my mana bar or something. I will be able to, I think, hopefully get through a lot of those big bursty abilities with 1 or 2 casts. One big Shaylin's gift, maybe a couple of Vivify spot heals, but I doubt much more will be needed. And then, outside of those moments, I can go back to Fistweaving for my healing. So I'm looking forward to that. This is going to be quite similar on Tira and Maruk. When the Gale Arrow goes out, the whole group drops to 10% health. You press 1 Shaylin's gift at max stacks, and the whole group should almost be topped up again, or at least be healthy enough to go back to Phalanx Stomp Healing or Ancient Teachings Healing. Again, same thing with the last boss, having an enormous heal on demand exactly when you need it that heals the entire party during the channelers or the ad phase on the final boss, again, is going to be excellent. And Shaylin's Gift, just having that very punchy group burst heal to specifically trade into certain mechanics, I think is going to be excellent for the spec. Looking further down the line, the changes to Ancient Teachings coming in 10.1, I think, is going to make it effectively AoE heal up to 5 targets, or like be split amongst however many people are injured. I think will be a nice change also to take away some of the RNG nature of how Ancient Teachings and Fist Weaving works. But I think the big win here is Shaylin's Gift. So that is going to, I believe, or I hope, fix the issue that Fistweaver has, is it doesn't have a good button to press when everyone is dying. The only other time when Fistweaver, I would say, feels bad is when one guy in the group is super dying. And that is things like the high tank healing around Tempest on the trash, the Thunder Lizard pack, or some of these larger pools around Tira and Maruk, or things like healing up the bleeds that get shot out on the trash around Granith. So the other change that's coming to Fistweaver is Thunder Focus T is now going to make, when used on Enveloping Mist, will also make your Enveloping Mist instant cast. Now I think this is a pretty big change because, like I just said, the only other time Fistweaver feels bad is when one person is really dying. And this is exactly what the Thunder Focus T change, I hope, will help alleviate or fix. It also will help when you're trying to do multiple things at once. Like I said, for the trash around Granith, when you're trying to babysit the tank a little bit, but also heal up the person who's got the bleed on them from the charge, or you're trying to heal up the person who's been taking a couple of bow shots, the auto attack things back to back. Being able to press Thunder Focus T and just get instant envelopings out, maybe even while moving if you have to, is going to feel great. That's going to be a huge improvement for Mistweaver's ability to feel like it can react quickly to damage. As far as Holy Priest goes, the build I'm really interested in playing for Holy Priest revolves almost entirely around Divine Image. This whole build is going to be built around trying to proc as many holy words as possible, and then leveraging the power of the Divine Image that's spawned after each holy word. So at the moment, there's I believe it's a 25% chance after your holy word that you get a Divine Image for 15 seconds. And what's changing in 10.0.7 is it's no longer going to be random, and it will instead be 100% chance of an image spawning after you use a holy word that lasts 9 seconds. I am really, really happy that Blizzard are winding back some of these RNG elements for healers. I think this has been quite long overdue. They still have a ways to go on some other specs and abilities, but it's really nice to see some of the more notorious ones be fixed. So Holy Priest Divine Image not just being maybe you get it, maybe you don't, is great. Fistweaver's maybe your big Rising Sun kick, Ancient Teachings healed the guy on 90%, maybe it healed the guy on 10%. You know, that randomness going away in 10.1 is also going to be excellent. Anyway, the point is that the new Divine Image talent means you can depend on images. You can plan around images. You can stack them up. The way Holy Priests have been playing all through our beta, all through our Dragonflight so far, has effectively been around Lightweaver. And that is that they take Trail of Light, they take Binding Heal, and they take Lightweaver, and then they play around Flash Heal and Heal, and effectively making that, or those abilities, pseudo cleave to 3 targets. Yourself, your previous heal target, and your current heal target. What Holy Priest has been lacking is powerful AoE healing. It isn't balanced around being stacked or conditional on being stacked, and gameplay that isn't so one-dimensional. Playing a healer that effectively just presses Flash Heal and heal 300 times in a dungeon maybe isn't the best design, or at least it'll be nice to have other options. You can certainly play that build in 10.0.7, but it'll be nice to be able to play something a little bit different. What is going to make Divine Image so strong, or at least much, much stronger than what it has been, is obviously the randomness is gone. But also the fact that Lightweaver really only allows for spot healing. You're only really healing 1 or 2 targets at a time. What Divine Image allows you to do is proc an image and then press an AoE heal, and your image will also use an AoE healing ability. Now, they don't do quite as much as whatever ability you're pressing. As an example, if you have a divine image active and you press Flash of Light, your divine image will copy or cast its own flash of light that's about 40% as powerful as your flash of light. The AoE heal is a bit better. I believe the divine image AoE heal is about half of a prayer of healing. The divine image will also copy your damaging spells. Now, the way this works, at least on the PTR, is that every time you press an ability, your divine image will copy an ability, or that type of ability. There are 3 types: a single target heal, an AoE heal, and a damaging ability. So all of your damaging abilities, Shadow Word Pain, Smite, Holy Fire, Shadow Word Death, whatever, Divine Star, any of them, it's all going to proc effectively a smite from your image. All of your AoE healing is going to proc effectively a prayer of healing that's about half as strong as your prayer of healing from the image. These all happen instantly. It's not like you cast an ability for 1.5 seconds and then when you finished it, your divine image will then cast for 1.5 seconds. That's not how it works. You cast something, your divine image copies it as you finish your cast. They're basically instantaneous events. It also works for things like pressing renew, power word shield, all of those kind of on the move instant cast heals. If they're single target, it will proc a single target heal from your divine image. So first of all, that allows holy priests to get more healing out while moving because they can press renew, they can press power word shield, and they can have their image or images copy those heals. It also allows them to buff their AoE healing if they wish. Like I said, holy priests have just been playing around Lightweaver, which is effectively a 1 or 2 target heal most of the time, with no way of buffing their AoE healing. But with Divine Image, Holy Priests will now have the ability to significantly buff their AoE healing when they need it. I'm thinking something like being able to proc double images going into Hersh's Storm, or even triple images and then pressing Divine Hymn. One of the weird interactions, or nice interactions with Divine Image, at least on the PTR, is that if you have an image up or images up and you press Divine Hymn, each tick of your hymn will proc an AoE heal from your images. So like I said, going into a Hosier Storm or a Tempest Storm, one of those very, very bursty, like the whole group is dying right now moments, being able to ramp into those moments with multiple Holy Word uses, and then pressing Divine Hymn should be significant throughput, which will be very nice for Holy Priests to get. It's also a way for them to buff their damage if they want to, and a way for them to buff their single target healing. So that seems like a very fun, very enjoyable, quite strong build, I'm hoping, and I'm looking forward to trying it out some more, taking it into proper groups and dungeons in 10.0.7. Now finally is going to be Resto Shaman. I don't really have a build for this, but I do know that I like what they're effectively doing with the tree. And that is they're slimming down a couple of points, like the Resurgent or the second Resurgence node is gone. Shamans will now be able to take overflowing, like the Healing Rain, Healing Buff, and the damaging nodes at the same time if they want to. The Chain Heal nodes got buffed. And there's plenty of good things here. The way I like playing Resto Shaman, it might not be the best way, but the way I like playing it is around High Tide and actually not taking Cloudburst. I like playing around healing Stream Totem, doubling them up even, or tripling them up if I really want to for some very heavy burst moments, which is nice, with Totemic Recall, leaning heavily on my Riptide for spot healing, and then getting my group healing, AoE healing out through Chain Heal, which is why I really like High Tide. Like I said before, one of the downsides of taking a Resto Shaman into something like Nokhud Offensive is that not having a tank external can sometimes be a problem. This is also sometimes a problem in Jade Temple, not being able to provide an external for the tank taking the Blackout Kick combo. One of the changes, this is actually something I asked for or suggested, I guess, in a previous video where I talked about the changes I would make to different specs if I was dev for a day. I didn't have much to say about Shaman at the time other than I wanted Earthen Harmony, or I wanted Earth Shield to do more than just be a healing buff. I suggested a permanent damage reduction. I think I actually suggested 6 or 8%, which is what's going to be 6. I also suggested that the Chain Heal nodes on the tree could incorporate some jump distance. And that is exactly what's happening. So Tidebringer was a PvP talent that's coming into the spec tree. It doesn't give Resto Shamans or Chain Heal any more power objectively. It's not going to make those abilities hit harder or heal more. What it is going to do is allow them to be used in more situations. So in my mind, Tidebringer is a direct buff to High Tide and a direct buff to all these other Chain Heal nodes. Something like Tempest, going into Tempest on Resto Shaman can be a little scary because you don't have group-wide AoE healing. It's actually, I should amend that and say that you don't have rotational group-wide AoE healing that's spread. And that is because Chain Heal has a limited jump range, and obviously you can't have the whole group stack in a healing rain or a downpour or something like that on a boss like Tempest when everyone's spreading out and collecting orbs and so on. Shaman, however, hasn't actually been that bad on that boss, and that is because healing Tide Totem is now very strong. And Ascendance and AG are both excellent cooldowns when you really want them. Big group healing. But what I like that's happening is that Tidebringer is going to increase the jump distance by 100%. If you take 2 points in this, it means you'll basically get a buffed Chain Heal, jump distance, and reduce cast time every 8 seconds. Stacks twice. That means you can go into a boss fight like Tempest. You can be sitting on your High Tide buff or be ready to proc it, and you can get 2 quite large, quite powerful Chain Heals that you can be pretty sure are going to jump around and hit the entire group during the storm. That is a huge buff, in my opinion. Actually, it's a buff on every boss in Nokhud Offensive. It's a buff on Granith. It's a buff on everything. The ability to have Chain Heal, not always, but quite often hit your whole party, even if they're loosely spread, is going to be a massive change. The ability to keep a 6% damage reduction on the tank 100% of the time is going to be huge for Shamans. I also like what they're getting with just some talent bloat being taken away, and some of the other talents that you could take to improve your damage are now just baked into the spec. That's fantastic. I think Shamans at the moment do comparable damage if they take none of the damage nodes other than Acid Rain. If you're playing a Resto Shaman, you take Acid Rain, you take the Lightning Bolt buff, the Chain Lightning buff, Storm Keeper, all that kind of stuff, then yeah, Resto Shaman damage pumps. What's happening in 10.0.7 is you don't have to talent into all those things anymore. You definitely have to talent into Acid Rain if you want good damage, but Stormkeeper is effectively now, like most of your damage is effectively now 1 point. That also means that you don't have to give up throughput in other areas to take damage, because something like Stormkeeper is also excellent when paired with AG. And at the moment, in the current game, you kind of have to give up throughput elsewhere on the spec tree to get that combination rolling, if you want it. In 10.0.7, you can pretty much have most of this. You get all of your damage, and you have a lot of your other bonuses you were taking, like the Resurgence, talent, are just going to be baked into abilities. So that's a huge win. So overall, I'm quite looking forward to 10.0.7. Let me know your thoughts, or like what other builds you might be looking forward to or interested in. Thank you for watching, and algorithm stuff.